I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
And Jelpy and Ghosty.
This is a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen. The return.
I know.
Of
PANTERA
to the channel.
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out.
Man, this is the Cowboys from Hell album also.
Yeah. Shout out to the big homie who made it happen. Ryan.
Yes.
Shout out to the big homie who made it happen. The big homie, Ryan. Yes, my guy. Yes. We appreciate the heaven out of you for requesting this song.
We're Christians, so we can't appreciate the hell out.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways to get your song reviewed on the channel. One way is the email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. And the other way to do it is my favorite way, which is the communal option, which is $1 at the gate at Patreon. And then once that happens, you get sucked into different sort of subcultures.
Yeah.
If you like real old school, legit metal, like PANTERA, for example, there's a group that loves that type of thing. And it's cool too because you get into a community, Discord server, all that jazz. But the selection that Ryan took was the, what do they call it? The Fast Pass.
Fast Pass.
$75 partner tier. It gets you right to the head of the line. He sent me an email. He's like, yo, where's that PANTERA thing? Shout out to the big homie. So $75 Fast Pass, that's going away at the end of this month, and then March onward, it's going to be $125 to get a Fast Pass going. But here we are, Heresy PANTERA.
You guys lucked out. We stayed on the 75 for like a super long time. Even though other channels don't do that, we stayed there. I don't even know why we did it, but it worked out. So
because I'm not a filthy capitalist like you and Zonia. Anybody's mad about that, you can reach out to Zonia. It was her idea.
All right, ready?
Okay. For time and topical political commentary, you can hit us up in Middle America with Big Vin and Sori. Let's do it.
It's this political channel. Go. Oh, here we go.
This is heavy. This is heavy, ladies and gentlemen.
It like comes in and it's like.
Rest in peace, my guy. Get it, Vinny! Done. All of you, the rest of you and your band, except for Ed, put down your guitars. It's over. Go home. Do something. Start a YouTube channel. You know what I'm saying? Do something. You cannot do what this man did. This is 1990. What was he, like 16, 19? Forget it, man.
Wow.
Just give up.
And the vocal style was different in this one, right?
Give up. You're not on these guys' level.
No.
And this is written in 1990. I don't even think we were verbal at this point. What in the world? That last 40, 45 seconds, man. It sucks that I'm not going to be able to go to a concert and I would destroy on that part.
Oh, I know.
Y'all saw me on the Wait and Bleed on the big screen. I was like heaviest headbanger there. Tell the truth.
I was close second.
You were. Not as much as me. Damn.
Yeah.
That last. I love when like bands were young and they didn't understand like verse, chorus, verse, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so, because sometimes like you just want to play heavy shit and they were just like, and then Vinny came in at the, oh man. I was just watching the Kobe, rest in peace to the big homie, watching the Kobe Bryant memorial today, man. And it's just like, I was thinking to myself, trying to reconcile myself to myself because there are other people that died on the helicopter crash. But then, you know, with these famous people, it's this big thing. And then thinking about Dime and Vinny too, but just Dime, the way he went out. You know, when somebody goes like too soon type of thing, you know. And you know, I'm trying to figure out, and the closest I could come is to say that when a person gets famous for being an entertainer, they almost become community property because of what they do, what their art form does in intersecting with the lives of literally millions, and in Kobe's case, close to 1 billion people. Where, you know, unless you're a sports head, like the inspiration that you get from a guy like unless you're a basketball person, like you're not gonna understand why Kobe was so important to us,
right?
Like, you know, and unless you're a metalhead, you're not gonna understand why Dime is, you know, some people, like I think it was Ben, it was like Dime plays one little riff and then goes crazy, but it's just kind of like it's not like the complexity of the riff. It's not that. It's just a certain type of attitude.
Yep.
That
he communicated through.
He communicates through his guitar. And obviously, you know, Phil is the whole band was very, very talented. But the for me, you know, with Kobe, I grew up with Kobe. Like I remember when he, you know, was like coming out of high school. I remember where I was in Florida when that happened, and I remember just watching him and. You know, Jordan was like in the middle of his third or fourth, you know, whatever. So I grew up with Kobe, and he, you know, he's one of those people that you just never thought was gonna die. Like I just never thought. And then, but with Dime, I'm experiencing him like almost retroactively, right? So like he is long, like 10 years dead when we discovered, which thankfully we discovered from the channel from you guys. And so now it's like...
It's hard to believe you had never heard of Pantera before.
No, I'd heard of Pantera. There was this one song, the Walk song, that I just didn't really...
Yeah.
It got played so much. I remember
I never heard of any of that.
I remember being at the Tattoo of the Earth show. Seven Dust was up, and I think they closed with Walk. And Don was still alive and all that, and that song was everywhere. Like, and I was just like,
so you didn't really give it a full chance.
Yeah, I didn't give them a full chance. And they were Southern, and so I was like, you know, like all the bands I liked was from California or, you know, whatever. Like, I just, the perception of who they were. I didn't really care about the Confederate flag stuff. Yeah, I mean, I was in Florida, you know what I mean, as far as like me not listening to them. But it was just like, I don't know, I just didn't like their style. I didn't like their vocal. The other thing is, like, this vocal style that Phil had on this particular song, now that we've been exposed to so many different forms of metal and so many different vocal styles, it's like there's a place in my you know, brain for it. And you know, it's like what happened when we were listening to Judas Priest.
Right.
So I think some of it had, like, I really believe that we literally needed the channel to expand my palette so that I could then, you know,
of course, yeah.
Right. So now that I'm experiencing Dime, it's like you're almost experiencing him retroactively, and like listening to especially the last 30 seconds of this song.
Crazy.
Brought me back to certain instances in my life when I was doing stuff and whatever, and the attitude and the mindset and the aggression and the, you know, it's very necessary aggression, obviously, but so it was just like, it's like kind of like he was there the whole time, but he really wasn't, which is, I'm not gonna talk about that, it's too weird, but
no, I get you.
So yeah, so it's so that's kind of how I reconciled it to, like, the injustice of a whole, you know, like, there are a lot of people that died of gun violence the day that Dime died. And there's a lot of people that died in tragic ways the way that, you know, the day that Kobe died. But why do these people get highlighted and other people don't? And it's because there's the give and take, because they kind of lose themselves a little bit because they become kind of community property. So the things that normal people can do, like walk down the street and go to Walmart and yada yada yada, especially when you reach Kobe and Don's level, you cannot do. You know, you just can't do it. You know, like, we're hanging out with Brian, you know, and he was talking about how he's driving down the highway.
Right.
And Korn's not even that the way that they were back in the day, and dude's following him, like follows him to the gas station and all that. So that's something that doesn't happen to normal people. So and that's and then what do we say? Normal people, we say, well, I mean, you chose this profession and you're on TV all the time, so you can't complain about it. That's the response usually, is that you chose this profession and you knew this was going to happen, and they're right. But then on the other side, if they die unexpectedly, then we're not going to treat them like they're everybody else either. You know what I mean? So like, because in both instances, what we're saying is you're kind of community property now that you've become a celebrity, and whether it's fair or not, whether it's right or not, that's what it is. And so, you know, that's kind of the way I reconcile it. But anyway.
I mean, these people are loved in ways that other people are not. You know, they're loved for what they provide, they're loved for who they are, they're loved, you know, just depending on who the person is that loves them. You know, some people, you know, Kobe was a staple for them, and, you know, it was something that they grew up watching him, and so it's just,
and he was damn inspiring.
You know, so it's like, you have the inconveniences of, you know, I'm sure plenty. I feel like Kobe would get stopped more than Dime would, because, you know, he's out there so much more. In all types of people like to watch those sports, you know. So I just feel like I don't even really know a whole lot about sports, but I would recognize him, you know.
Yes, but I will say that if Dime got stopped in public, the outpouring and the loyalty and the love would have been a lot higher for Dime than for
absolutely.
Kobe. Because metal is, unless you're in the metal community, like, you don't understand how important these people become in your life. Yeah. You know, like, it's crazy. We've done like 8, 9, 10 Ozzy songs or whatever, and I heard something like he's like on his last legs basically. like things aren't going. I mean, he's
holds he?
I don't know, 70 something, and years of drugs or whatever, and it's kind of like,
wow.
But then it's like, damn, man, and like I'm not even like a big fan, but we've done so many of the songs and reading the comment section and hearing what people talking about the first time they heard it in the 70s and where they were and what they were doing and all that, and it's going to be a tough day, so. But anyway, I enjoyed the song, but it was just it kind of makes you think,
Oh yeah.
All right, so lyrically, here we are in a world of corruption. Human nature is a violent breed. You don't say. we continue. No, we're not. We're neutral, or we're basically good. That's why there's been wars since all recorded history. We continue. Who cares if there's no tomorrow? When I die for my future's laid out for me. That's an interesting line. Right? Because he's saying his future's laid out for him when he died. When he dies. Which is an interesting line.
Yeah, it is. Because
you would figure it would be like, before I was born, my future's laid out for me. Yep. But if you're thinking theologically, he might be saying, well, I was predestined for heaven or hell anyway, so I don't really care, because when you're dealing with that type of determinism, then your motivation for doing anything in this world becomes kind of meaningless.
Yeah.
Of course.
It is a very interesting line.
Yeah, yeah.
I keep thinking I understand it, and then I read it and I'm like, wait, do I? Who cares if there's no tomorrow when I die for my future's laid out for me? Right.
So that's kind of a hint at an afterlife, but it's kind of a deterministic hint of the afterlife, which is kind of a very interesting... if you're in a very hyper-Calvinist system, or if you've been taught Calvinism badly, then it kind of creates that type of ideology. You know what I mean? Like everything's laid out for you, so whatever. So then, can't you see rise above the lies, morals on a backwards globe? A sin to you, for me, it's hope.
That was interesting.
Why? Yeah, I thought that was a good one too.
Yeah, just because to one person something is sinful. We interrupt this reaction to show you where in the world is a village.
Yeah.
This is Sherry.
Yeah, from the big homie Jeff. We really want to spotlight her because Jeff had sent this to us February 6th, and it is now February 20th.
But we're still in February.
Happy birthday to my brother, by the way.
Happy birthday. And look at how cute her socks are.
Oh, shit, yeah. The socks are very, very cute. You look very nice, young lady. Yep. And you're by some sort of waterfall. There you go. So she's rocking the Sori Secret shirt. So there you go. We're in the world of this village. And
do you know where they are located, or do we not know?
I do not know where they are.
So we... The village is by a waterfall.
The village is by a waterfall. If you want to be featured on the channel, just send us a pic of you in our shirt.
Any of our gear.
Or maybe a Middle America shirt. Show the Vinster some love, you bitches.
Either way, back to the reaction. One person looks at something as like, oh, that's so sinful, you can't do something like that. Or actually, and for me it's hope. Like, when you think about... like girls that will get pregnant outside of wedlock. Like, people are like, oh my god, that's a sin, and then like they look at the kid like it's this thing. But like for that girl, it's hope. Like, she lets that child, she lets that child live. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times, I follow this girl on Facebook, and she's had a lot of rough things happen to her, but she had her kid, and she was talking about how her kid was her savior, which I thought was pretty extreme and actually scary, because she has to come to find out who she is and find her strength and her savior in someone else other than her child. Jesus. But I do understand what she's saying. Like, a lot of times people are like, oh, if it wasn't for my kid, I would have killed myself by now. Right. Or if it wasn't for my kid, I would have done that. Kids do have a way of saving you from your own darkness. Yeah. But a sin to you, for me, it's hope. And just kind of like something like that. That's
an interesting. That's really, really, yeah. And which, of course, the ultimate kind of paradox. This is one of the things that I talk about a lot with the kids. Is like, look, if you're going to be a Christian, you have to learn to live with paradox, because there are a lot of sinful things that are part of the plan that then result in hope.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, a kid out of wedlock, like, oh, sure, that's sinful, yeah. But, because you're not supposed to have sex until you're married, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. It's not just a rule for a rule. Right. There's very important reasons for that. Check the CDC. But I think like there's a lot of wisdom in this, and we talked about this in the conversation with Albany, where we talked about how in the church when a girl gets pregnant out of wedlock, it's looked at as a really, really shameful thing because they can't live in that paradox because the scripture says that a child is a reward from God, and the fruit of the womb is a reward from Him, and you will not be put to shame at the city gates. And so it's a sign of honor and dignity and respect that you can carry a child. And so, yeah, sure, the fact that you're pregnant and you're not married means you had sex because there's only one blessed mother, right? There's only one Virgin Mary. But on the other hand, that child represents the hope that God is still with you. That God's still on your side, that God still wants you honored, that God still wants you to have dignity. And because people can't accept that paradigm in the church, at least, I think actually it's crazy that people outside the church can accept that. Are better at cutting those lines. That's just one example, but there's lots of examples where somebody does something that's screwed up. And, you know, and the other side is true too. Like, just because something has a good result doesn't mean that the means that you took to get there are good either. Right. Right? So for me, a sin to you, for me, it's hope. So I think you can make an error on both sides because both can be true. It can be sinful that brings hope, and one doesn't justify the other. Exactly. So that was a very, very provocative line. You could hang out on that line for quite some time.
Some pay to pray. You question why they act this way. It's their effing decision. I thought that was funny because it's like. It's true. Like there's sometimes I'm like, why do they do that? Well, it's just their decision. Like people decide to do things that you don't agree with, or people do things that you just think are crazy. But you know what? That is one thing that I feel like people are going to do what they want to do. And you can, you know, talk them to death to try to get them to do something other than what is in their heart to do. But if they don't have a change of heart on a certain matter, they're... It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how much force you apply. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah, and probably, you know, dig at some religions. Yeah. You know, like the I just read one with was it Paula White? She said, "This is what the headline said. I didn't click on it, so just FYI." But it was something like, "Don't worry about your light bill. You know, send me money. You know." Yeah. And it was like, then there's this other guy who was selling something about coronavirus, like, because I bless this, you won't get coronavirus, buy this, da. And part of me is like, is there really anybody that really believes that? Or are they just going along with that? But then it's like, well...
Maybe they question it, but they don't want to take the chance.
I mean, you can't really get much closer to a person's true belief system without looking at what they did with their money.
Oh, yeah.
You know, your money will reveal, you know, so I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I remember we would watch that TV show all the time. It was TBN. And my mom would be like, look, sure. It's basically like, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I'm like, Mom, you can't say that's bull. That's Benny Hinn. What's wrong with you? You're probably going to get struck. I used to pray for my mom. Please, God, don't strike her. But at the end of the day, it's their decision. So it's like, even if they're paying that stuff, like, can you really judge them? They're obviously getting something out of it. Maybe, you know, maybe there's a connection for a sin to you. Maybe to me it's hope. Maybe they're just buying hope. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Maybe they're just buying hope. I mean, my ultimate, you know, I look at those situations, I'm like, man, you should read your Bible, or this guy needs some more theological training, or we need to get this person a doctrine of suffering, or whatever. But, like, think about this coronavirus. Like, people are scared to death, man. People talking about, like, 80 million people getting hit. There's people, aside from the people that were on the cruise ship, there's, like, 15 cases of coronavirus in America. Yeah. You know, and there's nothing, you know, this is, you know, we've talked about this before, human beings talking about, I'm the master of my own domain, and then something as microbial as coronavirus can completely end you in 80 million people. Like, you're not the master of anything. And so somebody shows up and says, I can find a way to control this horrible situation and help you, you know, get out of this, you know, circumstance. Yeah. And then
plus, especially if you're able to do what they're saying, it's like, well, why not? I mean,
right.
If there's a chance.
Right. No more Judgment Day, only Tranquility. I think he means when he dies. Peace signs, protest signs. Peace signs, protest lines mean nothing to me. Honesty, born in me, heresy.
Yeah, you reacted on that part. What about it?
Well, I'm listening to this Tim Pool, and he's got another channel now where he's talking to this lesbian, and she's talking about how she's leaving the left. And it's because I guess what happened was she was with a male to female. No, it was a female to male trans person. Okay. So when they were dating, she was lesbian, the other girl was lesbian. Mm-hmm. But then this one is transitioning from a female to a male. So she said, "Oh, cool, great, but we're done because I'm a lesbian."
Right.
And she got blown. "Oh, you're transphobic, blah 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 blah." And then she was talking about, you know, these rates of these young kids, these underage kids who are getting these hormones or whatever, and the massive rate of them when they turn 16 or 17 saying, "I don't want to do that."
Oh no.
Well, but it's just chemical. I mean, I So, and she's like, "So what if we do like real irreversible things to these kids? Whoa, we need to pump the brakes here." And so now this is a person that's in the LGBT community, has dealt with all the slings and arrows of what I'm sure a lesbian, because she's 30, 35, so it wasn't easy when I was a teenager for kids to come out, and so she's been through the war is what I'm saying. And because she broke up with with this person who was transitioning from female to male, and because she said, she was like this horrible person, she's transphobic, people are sending death threats trying to kill. It's like, what in the world? Because she was honest. It's because she was honest, really? So now, you've got elements in our country of people who punish other people for being honest and saying their honest opinion.
Yep.
It's like, what in the world?
You know what bothers me is that people's opinions change. My opinions today are not going to be the same opinions that reflect my beliefs in 10 years from now.
Correct.
Because people
change,
evolve. We become other people.
Right.
Your mindset doesn't stay the same. And so heaven forbid somebody changes their mindset. They pull up stuff from 20 years ago and then they try to pin it on the person. It's like,
yeah. And it's like, that's their opinion. She's not saying, trans people should be killed or something crazy like that. I have the same problem. I had extended discussion with some of my trans friends about, I got a serious problem with an underage kid making these irreversible decisions. Your cerebral cortex, and it's literally the same argument I use for why we should forgive student loan debt. And so I got serious problems with that. Serious issues aside from.
No, I totally agree with you on it. I understand why they're trying to start doing that so early is because they're trying to get a jump on it before their hormones kick in too much, pushing them one sexual direction.
That's one argument. The other argument is they're all going to kill themselves if they don't do this.
Yeah, but that's not. I mean, the suicide rate is pretty high after they transition.
Correct.
So.
Correct. Although with kids, I don't know what the numbers are, but. I mean, but that's the point. It's it's an extremely complex issue, and to pretend as if this is completely settled.
Yeah.
This is completely settled. There's a univocal consensus on this. Blah blah. Come on, man. Stop.
Yeah.
This is a very complex issue, and so the way. But the thing is, the way that cultures figure out where they're going to go is through discussion.
Yeah.
But if you stifle discussion, this is one of my main issues with Antifa. You stifle discussion, whether you bully people, online or physically try to threaten them for daring to voice a different opinion than you, then this is one of the things. This is one of the things that this is one of the reasons I believe that Trump is going to destroy in a landslide, is because there are elements in our culture that do not let people express themselves. It's heretical, which from a old school Christian perspective, if you're a heretic, that means that you're out, you're out of the church, and in really extreme forms of Christianity, they'll burn you at the stake.
Yep.
So So if you're a cultural heretic now, these people try to excise you from the community and try to, virtually burn you at the stake, or if you're an Antifa person, literally try to do it. Yep. Of course, those Antifa people are absolutely cowards because they know exactly who to go after and who not to. Yes. I said a million times, how come I don't see these guys at a 1% biker convention? Those guys have articulated certain worldviews that don't fit with Antifa's agenda. Go over there.
Right.
Go to Louis Farrakhan meeting. There's a Savior's Day coming up pretty soon. Go over there and try that shit there. You cowardly motherfuckers. Anyway, I have no patience for those people whatsoever. I cannot tell you how much I despise. Help me, Jesus, with these people. That's a genuine prayer. But those are really extreme forms of it. But what happens? This is what happened with Trump. It's like Trump is a racist. He's a misogynist. So if you say anything pro-Trump, we're going to excise you from the community. So you know what people do? They go, "Oh yeah, man,
Trump's awful.
Fuck Trump. He's
then they get in there.
He's horrible."
Like,
and then when it's time to vote,
people are like, "How did this happen?" No.
And you know what's crazy? A lot of us listening to, I think it was Tim today, he was saying it's a lot of there's going to be a group of people that are just going to vote for Trump just so they can say, "Fuck you." Just so that they can say that because of this heresy stuff. Because, I don't even know if, I haven't listened to everything from Cowboys from Hell, but I'm sure there's material on this record that would not be able to be sung on certain stages in 2020.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm a big free speech person, and it's not just because I'm holding to the principle of free speech. It's because I believe that the more conversations we have with each other, the more our minds get changed. Our minds have been changed about a lot of things and people and things of that nature just by having conversations with other people and going, "Oh, I never saw it." I was not a big Medicare for All person. I wasn't a big Medicare for All person. It was conversations. It was the first time I listened to Bernie Sanders talk about it. And then there were other, I posted that one about Alex Smith who died of the insulin situation.
Yeah.
And Zonia hit me up and said, "That's not an exception. That happens a bunch of times." I was like, "What the?" So my evolution as well as, now people are like, "You're always talking about Medicare for All. You always find some way to get Medicare for All in there. Talk about something else." And I'm like, "No." and it's because it was a conversation that happened over years.
Right.
That changed my mindset. And we've had people reach out to us and say, "Hey, I've got a different perspective now."
Yeah.
That is the value of free speech. But if, let's say, some hardcore fascist right-wingers were, as aggressive with shutting down speech as other people are, then, they're labeling Bernie a socialist. Imagine if people were physically assaulting people that were driving, running cancel culture bullshit on anybody that articulated a quote socialist worldview, and then there'd be so many people that wouldn't be able to hear what Bernie's saying, which is actually valuable. And if what he's saying is not valuable, okay, then come up with a counter argument. And that's how you see whether or not what he's saying is really whatever. So fine, call him a socialist. That's great. Tell me your solution to 28 million uninsured people. And it's not about the argument. It's about the ability for us to talk to each other. And when you have so many markers of heresy where the person needs to be excised and burned at the stake and hit with a stick, or the show gets canceled because they posted something on Twitter, that's insane to me.
I just think that it's so easy for people to see that, when the church has been like that and it silences voices and it doesn't allow people to think for themselves, and it forces them to just believe something because it's been said that they should believe it. People are very quick to say, "Well, that's a problem."
Correct.
But then all of a sudden when that's happening in the political realm, people can't really see it as much.
Yep.
And so I think we just need to take off the glasses and realize it for what it is.
It's true.
People shouldn't be silenced in any of the arenas that we talk. And you're right.
It's true.
Talking is part of how we learn. That's part of how our mindsets change. And we have to be able to hear a genuine explanation from somebody who's in these situations to be able to actually say, hey, this is a problem, or it's not really a problem. Yeah. You have to have these conversations.
Yeah.
It's not about punch a Nazi. It's about, all right, well, let's have this conversation about this.
Yeah.
You know? But you're right.
Yeah.
The minute somebody says something, we shut them down, quiet everybody, silence everything.
Yeah.
But then...
Yeah. Yeah.
Church that does that is like...
Yeah. Yeah, well,
look at those people.
That's a big thing I've always said. Like, we're always able to look at another group or another generation.
And it's very easy to see.
There are certain folks and certain groups that cannot self-critique. Mm-hmm. And they're just as
it's
fascist.
a problem with a lot of people.
They're just as fascistic and as religious as the people that they judge, and they have no idea. They don't even see it. If you think... If you just uncritically accept that punch a Nazi bullshit, that's a problem. That's a problem. You shouldn't punch a Nazi. You should talk to him. That's what you should do. Good night. All right. What?
This is an 8 for me. I liked the heavy, but the vocal style. I was expecting like regular Pantera, so that kind of like threw me off. So
this is regular Pantera. It's their first record as like Pantera.
Yes, but what I'm used to. So
yeah.
So that's an 8 for me. What about you?
It's a 9.5, and this is
he's going on his harder ratings. So
well, it's because it's so prophetic of our time. You know,
yep.
Sometimes we listen to songs about war or things like that, and you go, "Oh, unfortunately, this is one of those things where it's like he was picking up on it in the early '90s, and it is worse by far now. Mm-hmm. So it's almost prophetic. I would love actually if Phil Anselmo wrote a book on philosophy.
That'd be crazy.
I would read that shit probably in a night and a half because honestly, he is probably, and I'm just probably projecting my own bias, he is probably the most underrated thinker in metal. But the stuff that he says is pretty freaking insightful. He's a really insightful dude, and the other thing is he understands human nature. And you know me, anybody that has a grasp of human nature, that's honestly like my ultimate mark of intelligence is how well you can grasp human nature. And he's and they were young. This is their first real Pantera record from what I know. So so it's a 9.5 for me mostly because of the last 30 seconds. Didn't really feel the solo that much, to be honest with you. But the last 30 seconds was heavy as hell, and then the lyrical content was absolutely prophetic from 1990 to 2020. I mean, how long is that? Is that like close to 30 years? It must be 30 years, right? It's crazy.
90 to 2020? That's
shout out to Ryan.
I guess it was like
this conversation was all over the place. But,
well, there you have it.
Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.